Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Hawaii PhotoCon. It's an honor to be here. I'm Stephen Burns, and this has been a lot of fun. Getting a real good response on the classes here. So we're going to do something. I think in the last class we did something photographically, but just to share with you before we start, I'm a digital artist. This is my website, chromalution.com. If you go to it, you get to go through here and take a look at some of the artwork that I do. This is all digital, all at Photoshop. I'm also an author. If you go to the books and DVDs on chromalution.com, and all this is on the flyer that I've given you. Go to the little book section here. You get to see all the books that I have written. These are been published internationally, and they're designed so that you guys are artists. You think and work like artists. And again, that's how I'm going to be teaching these classes today. So if you also go to, let's see, I've got what's called a Behance account here. I want to make sure I'm in the right section here. I'm going to go to behance.com. And Behance is Facebook for artists. And okay, this is the wrong browser, obviously. Let me go to the right browser here. And there we go. That's what I want. And Behance is right there. So if you go to my Behance site, okay, you get to see the categories of art that I do. In addition to doing photography, I've also worked with digital painting. I also work with illustration. You get to see a lot of that here. You get to see the books that I've written. This is some of the digital painting that I do. This is all done from hand. This is not a photograph painted on top of a photograph. This is where the photo is on one monitor and I'm drawing and painting on another monitor. And you get to see the detail. This is all done in Photoshop. Okay, so it gives you an idea of where I'm coming from as an artist. So today, we're going to talk about enhancing your work using a more advanced approach to photography. And I think you're going to find it very interesting. I'm also an instructor at several different colleges. One of them are the Studio Arts, and these are for industry professionals where you can take a Photoshop class. I teach the 3D classes here. There's After Effects classes. There are Premiere Pro classes. You might want to check this out, studioarts.com. I also teach at Golden West College and also Coastline College. So I got over 30 years background in teaching. So let me go ahead and close this out. This is from the class before. Now we're going to talk about you guys are photographers, right? You guys are going to help me out here. And the whole idea is how to take your image and make it award winning. So that's kind of the goal here. How do you go about that? When Ansel Adams, anybody here not familiar with Ansel Adams? Raise their hands. Okay, a couple of the young people, which I would expect to see. Right? So Ansel Adams, let's see. I tell you, we'll go to the website because you will know who Ansel Adams is when I show you this. So Ansel Adams. That's right, the Manzanar, and he's a famous photographer who revolutionized black and white photography. He's the man famous for photographing Yosemite Valley, Half Dome, and El Capitan. This is some of his work here. And he was considered a maverick in that before he died, they asked him what if he was a young man again, what would he consider doing? And he said way before digital that he would consider seriously about getting into that electronic imaging of photography. Right? And so this is some of his work. You've probably seen it. It's another shot of El Capitan. You've probably seen the shots of Half Dome. Let me see if I can find one more of his famous works. I think it was. This is one of them right there. That's one of his more of his famous work. Actually, it probably would be like one of these. Okay, all right. Now, I'm showing you this because this is where we're going to be going today. The problem with most photographers, when it comes to producing the final vision of their work, when Ansel created his work, most of his vision was realized in the darkroom. Recording it onto the negative was only half the battle. All the rest of it was done in the darkroom in post-processing. So how do we post-process our imagery so that our work is going to be award-winning? That is all done through this concept called values. When I say the term values, I'm talking about black and white information, black and white gradients throughout your image. That is where all the detail and the depth is kept in your imagery. There are two types of aspects to all images, whether it's digital painting, whether it's photography, whether it's drawing. That is the values and the hues, two separate concepts. We as photographers have fallen into some bad habits, and that we're relying on the hues. Why? Because that's the first thing our digital camera gives us, is color. So we rely on the color. We think the color is where it's at. The color is where we produce the detail, the texture, the sharpness. That's completely incorrect. It's done in the values. It's done in the black and white information. And we're going to prove that today. Okay? So let's go into Bridge. So I'm going to go to Photoshop. You can go to Photoshop, File menu, Browse in Bridge. And what Bridge does, it's another program that comes with Photoshop that previews all the images on your hard drive. Okay, so I'm going to go over here, and I've chosen a bunch of images that we're going to work with today. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of them. All right, we're going to work with this one here. Okay, and I'm going to hit the space bar so we can maximize it. So as a photographer, when we look at this image, we see that color on there. And immediately you think, we got to enhance that color to really make it pop out, right? Make it jump out. Color has become a crutch to the point that you don't even see the real depth and the value. You don't really see the fact that you're missing a strong sense of foreground, middle ground, background. You just see the color. All right, so we're going to break this image down systematically, and we're going to make this thing really jump. So this is a raw file taken with my Canon 5D Mark II, and we're looking at it. Okay, this could be kind of an interesting concept here. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up inside Adobe Camera Raw just to make my point. So I'm going to hit Command or Control R, the shortcut for opening it up into Adobe Camera Raw. And there we go. So RAW is nothing more and nothing less than Lightroom. That's all it is. Basically, the fact of the matter is that Lightroom is nothing more and nothing less than Adobe Camera Raw and Bridge put together all in one program. Okay? All right. Now, color is our crutch. We can't see the depth. Well, let's go view the depth. We're going to come right up here. You got your light, and Adobe's reorganized all this stuff. And you also have your color. I'm going to open up the color, and I'm going to get rid of the crutch. I'm going to get rid of the problem. The color is the problem. That's your problem. And we're going to pull this out so we see the values only. Oh, somebody's finally starting to see. What does this look like to you? What was that? Yeah, but what's the nature of the black and white? Is it snappy? Is it interesting? It's flat. It's flat. This is what color keeps you from seeing. All right. Now, A lot of photographers don't work this way, except they don't know what they're looking for. My advantage is I went to school for years as a black and white photographer in the darkroom. So let's look at it this way. We want rich, deep shadow details we want rich, deep shadow values with detail. We want texture in there. Now, what we're going to do is I want to pull up the lower tones. Lower tones meaning the blacks, mid-tones meaning the medium grays, like what you see right there, okay? And the high tones being in your brighter values. Now, watch. Control plus, let me get in closer. Space bar to bring this on over. You can see the beautiful detail. You think there's lots of detail on that in these brighter areas. There isn't. There will be. Okay, let's get in a little closer. Here's my shadow areas. The shadow areas are blocked up. I need to release these midtones in here so that I can see detail all in this window. We're going to go up to the light. The light section represents not color, but only black and white information. That's why these slider tonalities are in black and white. We go down to shadows. We're going to start with the shadows. Why? Control the detail and the shadows first so that we can graduate to the highlights, and then we will deal with the midtones last. So watch. Shadows, pull it to the left, it darkens them up, blocks them up even more. Pull them to the right, we start to pull detail out of there. See that?
So doesn't it change the whole photo, not just the window?
Okay, so the question is, doesn't it change the whole photo globally and not just the window? Yes, but only the lower tones, right? Remember, only the shadows. That's why it's called shadows represents your lower tones. It will not touch your midtones. It will not touch your highlights. It's also pulled up a little bit of detail in here. This is the stuff we start to learn in more of the intermediate class. So there we go. We got detail in there. Now, we're going to take a look at the highlights. If we're able to tame the shadow details correctly, nice little detail in here, let's see if we can tame the highlights a little bit better. So, right above the shadows are the highlights. If I bring them up higher, you blow out your highlights. If you bring them down lower, we add detail to those highlights. Look at that. Look at that beautiful detail in there. Okay, now we go down below the shadows and we have the extreme highlights, which are your whites. So if I pull that down a little bit, you get to gain a little bit extra detail in your whites and the highlights. That's a good thing. Now, we also have the extreme blacks. That's probably closer to the areas in here. So if I get in closer, these areas in here, if I go to the blacks and pull them up a little bit, see? See, I'm pulling out detail in there. Let's go back up to here and look at the window. Now, immediately you're thinking, boy, it's really flat now, right? That's a good thing. Why? Because now it gives me the ability to pull in more detail and separate all these little subtle lower midtones apart from one another, giving you detail and sharpness in the lower tones. So watch. We'll start up here. We're done with this section here. We have another set of sliders that we want to pay attention to now. Those sliders is under the effects. If I drop down the effects, we have a slider. We're going to ignore the vignette. We're going to ignore the grain. Not interested in those. I'm interested in this one called dehaze. Interesting. Well, when you look in the landscape and you look further in the background, it gets hazy, right? What is that haze doing to the overall tonal range of your image that makes it flat? Can anybody explain that? It's doing what to the contrast?
Decreasing it.
Decreasing it. How? It blends everything together. How?
Washes it out.
How? How?
It's the midtones. It's the midtones.
No.
Oh.
What is the shadow?
It does what the shadows?
What is the shadow?
Excellent. The haze never touches the highlights. It brings up the values of what? The shadows. So dehaze, which means dehaze, which is a stupid name, is the opposite of haze, means it goes only into the shadows and brings the shadows down. And watch what happens. Dehaze, I'll go the opposite to haze, haze. See the shadows? Pull it the opposite way. Look at that. Look at the detail. Did we see this detail before? No. All right, let's inspect the rest of the image. Look at the nice sharper edge we've got here. Look at the eyes. See, it seems like you've gotten more depth, but we did not increase contrast, did we? No. Contrast in your light section, that slider there, is the devil. Don't use it. Why? Can anybody explain to me why we don't use contrast?
Uses your crutch.
That's your question. Basically, we're controlling the lights and shadows independently, right? Why do you need contrast?
Contrast is global.
That's right. And what we're doing is tagging the blacks and the whites, where contrast is global.
Oh, okay. The overall.
Right. Okay, we're not done. We're not done. We got more to do. Okay. Now watch this. So we're going to go back down to the effects. Okay. There's our dehaze. I might be able to afford pulling it. I'll get a little closer. Okay. Maybe that's pretty stark in there. I'll leave it the way it is for now. We'll leave it the way it is now. So I'll hit the Command 0, which pulls the whole thing together. Looking pretty good. So now, because we've been playing with the lights and shadows separately, we sacrificed a little bit with what was going on in the mid-tone areas. So the mid-tone areas have become flat. So now we're going to give the midtones a little bit of extra pop. That happens with dehaze. Not dehaze, clarity above dehaze. Clarity targets only the medium grays, only the midtones, and gives it more contrast. And watch what happens. I'm going to get in closer again, and we'll look at these two guys side by side. Now I'm going to go to the clarity, pull it to the left, or pull it to the right. Look at that.
More definition.
Lot more definition. Now, The last thing we need to talk about is what? No, what area of the print? What highlights? The highlights. We've been neglecting the highlights, so that's what texture is. Just as contrast, just as clarity as contrast in the midtone, texture as contrast only in the highlights. So if I go to the textures and pull it to the left, see the highlights get soft. If I pull it to the right, look at the sharpness pop out in those highlights. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, now this is not what I wanted to show you. What I'm going to show you next is what it's done to your image. Let's pull it back a little bit, like this. And now we're going to go back up to color. Color is dead center, right? That's the 0 point, right? Watch what happens. Bloop, 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 bloop. The kids back there are getting this. They're starting to see, look at that. Doop, doop. So why does this work this way when it hasn't been working this way for you the entire time? Because Photoshop does something you guys never thought it did, that no one ever told you. Photoshop doesn't work in RGB. Photoshop doesn't work in CMYK. It works in one language only, LAB, lab. Lightness, which is all of your values, your black and white information, separated from all of your color in channels A and B. You only learn that in my advanced class. It works naturally in LAB. So when you took the slider down to black and white, Photoshop goes, oh, screw you color, only do black and white. And then when you brought the color back in, did we do any color adjustments?
No.
No. None. Isn't that interesting? So if I go more, watch how garish it becomes. It becomes crazy garish. And okay, let's reason this out here. So the fact that the saturation is only going to go half the way, what is that telling you about the information in your file? You were left with more information in your file. The harsher you bring the slider to saturation, the more you destroy information. We're barely moving that slider, which means we've got more information in that file, which means it's going to print beautifully. Is that kind of making sense? Okay. All right, so Command 0, we're going to put that one here. I might bring it over a little bit like that. That's good. And let's go ahead and click Done. And let's do a side by side. So I'll duplicate this with a Command C, Command V. Okay. And these are raw files. Oh, did it crash on me? Yeah, it did. Come back. There we go. I'm going to come over to this one and right click, go to my develop settings and clear those settings so it goes back to normal. Did that commit the changes? Let's see. Here. Yeah.
Go back to the original.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Okay, let's do another. Okay, let's do. I'll do the beach after I do this one. Okay, Command or Control R. I know your bus is gonna leave soon, huh? Like, oh man. Uh, getting good? Getting better? Okay, that's better. All right, have fun. Have a safe trip home. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Have fun, everybody. Thank you for coming. All right, so you have a lot of the students are have a lot of students have to take the bus home, so they've got to go. But we've got most of the class still here. All right, so let's look at this one. Let's look at this one. So already, remember, color is a crutch. Color is a crutch. So we're going to go to the color section and we're going to pull it out. You're going to see what the values have for us here. Already I'm seeing some of the whites are not as much detail, is kind of washed out, and the blacks definitely do not have the rich depth that it should have. But we want to make sure that there's detail everywhere. So I'm going to zoom in a little closer. I'm going to, getting closer to black so we can see there's a lot of blocked up areas in here and it's black. I want detail. I want the richness, the texture from that wall to come through that black. All right? So we go to our lights, since this is where we're going to control our values, and we're going to start with the shadows. My recommendation is to always start with the shadow details first. Get control of them. Once you've got the control of that, then we can pull the highlights down to where they need to be. And this allows us to separate those shadows, midtones, and highlights. So shadows, midtones, highlights. Take the shadows up. See? There's detail in them hills. Look at that. There's lots of detail. But you didn't see it because it was too blocked up. And you wouldn't have seen it with color because color is a problem. It just gets in the way. Now, I'm going to come on down to the blacks and just pull those up just a little bit. There we go. See, it even opens it up even more, right? Look at that. So it's flattened it out, but we've got wonderful, I can see the wall detail coming in through those shadow areas. See that? What was that?
That's just, I think that's something I just have to remember. Because I'm looking at, I will look at the black and thinking I'm supposed to darken it instead of flattening it out. Because I guess that's when you go to the effects and you do the texture and you pull in the.
Right. And then this is why I saved this for the advanced class. Because that's where we start understanding how important values are. That is why going back to black and white is critical. Right? When you're in photography school, that's what you do in black and white before you go to color. But in today's world, everybody's got a digital phone. Everybody's got a digital camera. Everybody's working in color, and they're not getting training. Right? Everybody thinks they're a great photographer. Why? Because they got 10,000 friends on Facebook that says they're good photographers. Right? But you get the proper training, now you know why it's good and why it's not. Right? So here we go. So there we go. So we brought up the shadows, shadow details, and now let's go deal with the highlights next. Highlights are here. If I pull them to the right, that may be what you're tempted to do. No. Bring them down. Bring the details down. Look at now we got detail in those highlights. If we go to the whites, you can pull it down more. We got even a little more detail. Remember in the last one, did we ever bring up the whites? Never. We never touched the whites. All right. So now, okay, we're ready to go. So if I hit Command 0, it's flat. That's a good thing. That's a real good thing.
What?
Flat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it does look better already.
Well, it doesn't look better. It looks horrible.
It looks better than, I mean, the color's kind of,
There is no color.
it looks, it still looks a little more in depth than it did before. It doesn't look as flat.
Well, it doesn't have more depth. It's flat. Flat is the opposite of depth.
Sure.
So let's give it some depth. Effects. Dehaze. Haze. Dehaze. All right. Give it, that is depth. Your work should be dynamic. Now, I'm a judge at the largest international photography contest. It's the San Diego International Photography Competition. We have about 4 to 5,000 submissions every year at the fair. You should around June, about June to ends on July 4th. All through June and ends on July 4th. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen the passion of the photographers in their composition, but they fail in their post-processing. They still get hung, but they could post-processing could be much better. This thing has, you're seeing contour and you're seeing depth here. Here we go. Now, highlights. I'm gonna give it a little bit more dehaze. No, not that much more. I don't want that much more. Just keep it right where it is. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna deal with the mid-tone areas where we lacked contrast because we've been messing with the highlights and shadows separately, right? So that's what clarity does. So if we get in close, go to clarity, go to the left, it softens it up. Go to the right, see that? It's very stark now. I want to bring my, I'm gonna go back up to my lights real quick. I'll check something out here. Highlights are already over. Maybe bring the whites over a little bit to the left. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, this is good. Okay, so I might even be able to, I think I can afford the exposure. Your exposure is dealing with the shadows, midtones, and highlights equally. I think I can afford to bring this down a little bit, just a little slider down, like there. Yeah, just a teensy little bit. Now, should we go to color? Okay. Pull this down. Let's see, to there. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, let's bring it over. Look at that. See that? Now, the hardest thing for most photographers is to getting rid of the color from the very beginning because because that's a learning. The learning to do a beautiful, finely tuned black and white image is hard, way harder than color. But if you can master getting the tones down first, the values down first. Now, why are we working this way? So you're going to draw, say, you're going to paint a portrait of a client. What is the first thing that you do?
Sketch it out.
Sketch it out with what?
Black and white.
With black and white. No. What do you do next? You shade it with what?
Oh,
Black and white.
With values. You get your depth down with your shading. Then you do what? You add the color. That's how it's traditionally done. Our craft as photographers do not come from photographies. It comes from the master painters, the master sculptors. That is the history of our craft. And if you can wrap your head around that, you're going to be a far better photographer. Okay, so any questions at this point?
You have an image and the white balance is off. Would you suggest repairing the white balance before doing this or after doing this?
Okay. His question is, if you have an image and your white balance is off, if I reduce that image to black and white and produce the clean values that I need, what do you think is going to happen to the white balance?
it's gonna balance itself out.
There we go. You're going to balance itself out. Try it.
Never thought of that.
Yeah. Most people don't.
Steve, if you have an image, your images were exposed pretty much perfectly. If you have one that's over or underexposed, would you fix that first overall before messing with?
All right. So the question is if I have an image that's underexposed or overexposed, do I correct those exposures first before I do this process? What are we doing?
But you're playing with values. The question is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. You're overcomplicating it. You're playing with values. Get the values right. It'll naturally do what? Balance itself out. So what I'm showing you guys is a different mindset. Think like painters, not like photographers. Yeah.
So, like, let's say you're doing like a high def image where you're shooting one frame under, one frame over, compositing the three.
Excellent question. So the question is, I'm using HDR, high definition, doing multiple exposures, bringing them together.
So there.
So
the
what?
values are going to be very high for all three, but in all three different areas. So when you composite, how do you adjust the values?
Sell
The
them.
same thing,
Still the same thing.
because they all, you're adjusting three different
You
values.
just
Bec-
have a
when you-
great
when-
range of values.
When you're using high definition, you're not shooting high definition to be a HDR photographer. You're using high definition to make sure that you gain details in the areas that you want details in, which means that high definition merge is flat as hell. So you do this workflow and take you right back and it rebalances itself right back out. Think of the values, not the color. Yeah,
Can I go back to the HDR?
sure.
Do you do this before you blend those frames together or after when you have the final photo?
The question is, if you're going to use this technique that I call the value-based workflow, I recommend that you merge them together first. They'll be in color, and then after you get them all the color merged together, then go to this workflow.
I was thinking you were doing separate then bringing it.
You could. I do that. So in other
It should
words,
blend well after you correct it.
well, hold on a minute. Actually, I don't do that. Well, I do it, but not in the way that you're talking about. We're talking about a single image that you're
Right.
merging together. Just merge them together. Just simplify it, merge them together, make sure you have good detail in your shadows and highlights. That's all HDR is for. It's just ensuring you have detail throughout your image. That's all it's for. It's not making an art piece for you. Only you do that with your skill sets. Yes,
So if you're shooting in black and white,
yes.
just start off shooting it in black and white. Does that make this process easier or?
All right, so the question, if you start off shooting in black and white, and you want black and white from the beginning, the black and white in the end, it's the same process.
Same thing?
No different. That's exactly what you do in the dark room. Expose for your shadows, print for your highlights. And I'll show you if you know what that means. Because a lot of us have never been in the dark room. What that means is you take your light meter, you expose to make sure that your shadows have good exposure. And then if your highlights happen to go off a little bit, you go in the dark room and you burn them down into the highlights, print for your highlights. Yes.
I use my histograph on my camera to make sure I'm not peeking anywhere.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, where you're getting the correct value within that parameter?
It's always when I'm shooting a full tonal range image, I always shooting bracket my shot
Okay.
so that I'll do 2 over, normal, 2 under, 2 stops under and over. Or you can do 5 stops, where it's normal, 1 stop over, 2 stops over, 1 stop under, 2 stops under. Then that way it gives you the ability to merge them together if you want to. Remember back in the day before digital? Because your question is saying this, well, how I get the perfect shot on each shot? No, back in the day with film, you bracketed your shot, right? It was always 3 shots to make sure that somewhere was a good exposure. It's no different today. Was that helpful?
Yeah.
Now that's the stuff I do in the advanced class. We go beyond that actually. But you got to get your foundations down in the beginning. The intermediate class starts to get into the creative stuff, using a Wacom pen, getting into AI, things like frequency separation techniques for retouching, and we're getting into the masking, the layer masking for image blending. We don't do masking in the beginning class. So that's what this is for. Beginning, intermediate, and then advanced we announce later. And if you're really ambitious, you'll go out and actually shoot with us. So that's what the Death Valley class and the Eastern Sierra workshop, which includes Bodie Ghost Town. That's what those are for. You get to go out with us and other photographers, and they all include critique sessions and the Photoshop class. It's fun. It's so much fun. I think that's all we have time for. Now it's time to eat.
5 weeks, there's like 5 different sessions.
Yes, those are 5 different sessions. We made it 7. Well, Pacific time meet at 7 to 9 Pacific time for 5 weeks. Every week is recorded. So I send you home with homework every week, but you have the recording to help you. And it's a damn good class.
They did, and it was very bad.
Oh, okay. If he did my class, oh yeah. Who was it? Oh yeah. Yes, he did. He did it last year. I remember him. He did 2 classes, I think. I think he did the beginning, then he did the intermediate afterwards. Yeah, I remember. Tell him I said hi. Is he here? Okay, good. Make sure I see him tomorrow. All right, yeah, do the class. It's real good. I only accept 10 people in the class max. I keep them private. I keep them small. So sign up now.
This is
Yeah. You know what?
different time zone.
It doesn't matter. What time zone are you in?
Like 20 hours ahead.
We need 20 hours ahead. Where are you?
Guam.
You're in Guam? Well,
No, I'm actually probably more than that. I'm 20 hours ahead of Guam.
so 7 p.m. my time is what time your time?
7 p.m. your time?
Yeah.
Will probably be,
In the morning, right?
yeah, every morning time, probably 3 or 4 o'clock. Well, not 3 or 4. Cause I do conference calls at 4 a.m.
Yes, Google.
Yeah, ask-
Ask
Okay,
Google.
Google, what time is it in Guam when it's 7 p.m.
I think it's
Pacific?
13 hours ahead of 14.
It's 1 p.m.
Maybe
on.
1 p.m.
Fine, then join us at 1 p.m. your time.
I'll be at work.
Oh, well.
Oh, but it's only, but it's for 5
But
weeks.
it's only for 5 weeks and it's recorded. You're getting the recordings.
Yeah, they just do record. Because this, I've never, this is good.
Okay.
I would have never thought to edit photos in black and white.
Yeah. Most people don't.
So here's the thing, so what
Yes.
about when you do portraits?
Same thing.
Same thing. Now, do you do portraiture?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do.
Some people don't like the smoothness, they like,
Yeah, a lot of people don't. People want the natural texture in the skin. They want smoothness, but they also want that natural texture to be there. Right.
it's not.
And I'm going to talk about that on Sunday. On Sunday, I'm going to bring portraits in and talk about how to handle that. Sunday is the introduction to introduction to Photoshop.
There's something else I think in Photoshop, it's not a portraiture, it's something else that smooths out the photo a little bit. What's it called?
It's probably a plugin, is what you're thinking of.
Maybe it is a plugin. But it's not portrait.
Yeah.
You know, like in portrait, you can choose like different variants, like the medium, and then you can do tones and all that stuff. Because I have Photoshop, I have,
Do the beginning class.
okay.
No one gets out alive. Yes, sir. Okay, so well, but the question is, do I recommend a Wacom tablet or a monitor? I'll show you what I use.
Oh, when you do your edits?
Yeah, I use a Wacom. When I'm on the road, I use a Wacom tablet. Here's the site. So when I'm on the road, I use this, and that's exactly what I have right here, right here in front. You didn't notice?
I thought you used it, but I didn't know, I've never seen it.
Yep, that's the Wacom tablet right there. It's called the Intuos Pro. Okay. No, about $350. Go to Amazon, about $350. Once you buy it, you're done. I mean, it's an investment. That's what I use.
To edit.
Tell them about size.
But what was that?
About size.
Medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a medium that I'm using right now. I also use at home the Cintiq, which is the monitor. I use the 24-inch Cintiq, which is the monitor. That's not the big one. That's we'll find the products, and we want the Cintiq, which is right there. I use this one right there, the 24. That's the one I use.
So when you're using the Cintiq, are you actually having it on the desk that you're looking down
No,
on?
I have an arm that is attached to that I can move it around in space, down to my belly or up to my head or whatever I want. But you can just set it on your desk.
Right.
But they're both called Wacoms, right?
That's a Wacom. The company is called Wacom.
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 You have Wacom, that tablet there, and then you have the 24-inch monitor.
That's right. So that's at home. That'll cost you more money.
Does it come with the arm? You had to buy it separately.
You can get it with the arm. Wacom does sell it with the arm. That's a little more money.
Like what, 1200 maybe?
Oh, I don't know. We go in and check it out. I don't remember. Yeah.
Which one do you, I mean,
I prefer the monitor because when I'm doing retouching and painting and stuff, there's no, it's intuitive. You just touch it, boom, and you just go. Right. Here is disconnected, and you can do it. You just have to get used to the fact that, but you will, yes. The monitor, well, your Cintiq is your monitor, or if you work, well, I've got three monitors. One's a Cintiq, and then the other two are BenQs. And the Cintiq calibrates very well. So I have a calibration that calibrates all the screens so they all showing similar color. Okay, yeah.
What's the thing?
Cintiq is what I just showed you right here in front of you.
Oh, okay.
Right, so if I play the play button here, play,
Oh, Cintiq.
that's the name of the product, the Cintiq. So that's a monitor. So you can stand it up on the desk just like this. I prefer the ARM where because I'm sitting at a desk with two additional monitors. So now you're starting to think and work like a painter. Right. Yes. Everything. This is now my input tools. Now I'm no longer using a mouse, but I feel like I'm drawing and painting with a brick. Yes. With the Cintiq, you get something additional with it. It showed it to you. Let me back up a little bit. Right there. See that little button? You can put additional shortcuts and tools on these buttons. Yes. Not with the tablet. Isn't that nice? Yeah, well, no, mine is different. Mine is by Ergotron. You can buy your own Ergotron arm. Go to their website, www.ergotron.com, I think it is. There it is. Okay, Ergotron, and it has the arms, so I guess I can click on that. See, all different, except all the different types of arms, you know. This is one for computer monitor. I have a similar desk like this, set up like this.
I'm just managed shopping.
I know. That's the wonderful thing about Amazon. So thank you all for having me. This is great. We'll see you tomorrow. I think our class tomorrow starts at what time? Yeah, tomorrow's the 23rd. It starts at 11:30 a.m.
Is it a different class?
Yep, it's a different class. Every single class I do is all unique. So that you guys come here and you sit all week in my class. All right, thanks everybody. I'm gonna pause the recording. We'll stop the recording.
Since you're a judge,
Yeah.
can I get your opinion?
Yeah, sure. Sure, you got it. Let me take a look. Let me do this here. And go find my here's my recorder and